I'm delighted to have with us Mort Sahl. Good afternoon, sir.
Oh, Mike, you're my oldest friend in Los Angeles. You know that? 20 years.
20 years.
The only one I know longer than that is Herb Sargent, who's in New York. I know him for 24 years.
Well, when I first met you, you used to be calling Herb Sargent in New York.
Well, you guys still got the retention, too. But 20 years, yeah, since I met you in San Francisco. You know what we had last week, the Hungry Eye reunion.
I heard about that, where you were the one who pointed out about President Carter being reborn.
We went to the cannery, you remember in Fisherman's Wharf. What was reassuring about it was we had 4 days in the cannery nightclub, and we did, Jonathan Winters was up, and the Kingston Trio and the Limelighters. Sold out in a day. They were even scalping tickets, and Home Box Office taped it. So some of you will see it.
Well, what age group was attending? Was it those who were there to reminisce, those to recapture?
Yeah, mostly. I didn't see a lot of young people, although I'm making a deal to go into the theater permanently on the weekends. I'll do Dante's down here Wednesday and Thursday and go up there Friday and Saturday. So it's going to be fun. I got back in the town. Well, what was funny was, at the end of the show, I came up on the stage and we felt somebody was missing. Obviously, the guy that started this all, Enrico Banducci.
Yes.
And then I told the story about how Herb Caen had discovered me, how he got a letter.
Is that true?
And, yeah, that's all true. And, my mother had written a letter, which I don't think Herb Caen is aware of. My mother wrote him the letter.
Oh, how lovely.
You people do read your mail.
Yeah,
So I told the story. I don't know. It's a measure of our times, not me, that people were amazed that I would give any credit where it's due, including those people. I think Herb was surprised.
It's a very funny point. I've discussed this with newspapermen. I will never quote from the newspaper without giving the credit. And I wish that television stations, and I can only speak for here locally, because that's where I am, here locally, when they go after a news story, will admit that they tore it out of the LA Times or the Herald Examiner first thing this morning.
Oh, sure. Attribution, absolutely.
And they get paid so much more than the men of the printed word.
I should say.
So, I want to go back to the reunion. You are the one who said if Jimmy Carter had to be reborn, why would he come back
as Jimmy Carter? If I didn't say it, somebody should have. Well, all that stuff, that stuff goes around so that eventually you're saying it and you don't know who said it first. Those
classic example, while you were waiting in the green room there.
Yeah.
That's the brown room with the red stripes. A gentleman came in, one of my colleagues, and spoke about Harveys and said they're all drinking Harvey Warbangers. That was a Herb Caen line. Yeah,
well, there you go. See, I hope Reagan can be elected soon, because how long can he hold his hair that color? It's going to go around.
Bob Hope used that last night.
Oh, you were the MC.
Yes, I was. And he used that line last night.
Get a big laugh?
Well, I'll tell you, the funniest thing happened. I introduced him, and I used a line that, so help me, I thought was original. And it wasn't. And I inadvertently had obviously stolen it or used it, because Bob Hope came on the stage and used the exact same line.
And what happened? They get any reaction since they'd heard it?
Well, slightly less than...
That happened to me, at the Comedy Store.
I came on the stage and I said, and now, we all leave England for different reasons. Mr. Hope left at the age of 4 when he discovered he couldn't be king. Anyway, on he comes and he said, I'm like Michael, I left England at the age of 4.
No kidding.
But he kept that audience in hysterics, honestly, for over an hour, solidly. They loved him.
Oh, I believe it.
With the lights up. And it was really,
I'm a great fan of his.
Are you really?
Yes, and he is of me, and I'm very proud to say that, because, during my ins and outs, I was driving through Philadelphia one day, and Joel Spivak was on.
Oh,
doing a
WCAU.
Talking about the demise of Mort Sahl, what he did wrong. And
what's it like to drive through and listen to someone telling you about the late lamented you?
Well, I've used it in a script that I wrote for Universal. I have a guy listening to his marriage being discussed by Tony Grant in the script.
Oh.
All in good fun.
Oh, good.
So, but anyway, so Hope gave the guy a lecture. He said, you don't ever count champs out. The guy's a champ. He said, if you don't see him for 2 weeks, you don't... He's always been a great booster of mine, and of course, it's ironic for the kids out there, because he's usually lecturing some liberal about my virtues, and he theoretically, in their eyes at least, is a conservative, or has been.
No, in some areas you're very much alike, if you don't mind my saying so.
Not at all. I consider that high praise.
I mean, I can remember going back an expression. When you walked in, we were talking about liberals, and I looked at you and I said, didn't you used to call them social democrats? Germans and Swedes.
I can tell you exactly what they say from week to week. They have code words. I saw a fellow in the lobby when I walked in asking Michael, if you represent his mattress company. It's
Yes.
Liberals filling a waterbed with Perrier. They're all eating sushi now, aren't they?
Yes.
Voting for John Anderson.
Did you ever hear what I did with the man who runs Perrier in this country?
No.
I had him seated where you're seated, and I brought in a tray with 7 glasses. And I filled one of them with Perrier and 6 with Canada Dry soda water.
And
On his 5th guess, he got Perrier.
out of 7?
Yeah, but I did a wicked thing. You know what I did? I called People magazine first.
Well, why not? I mean, you know, the good magazine, the intellectually
Right.
adept.
And he said that his bubbles were natural, and I asked him if he'd ever seen an unnatural one.
Yes.
We go back to the the Hungry Eye.
Hungry Eye reunion, yeah.
What are the Kingston Trio doing?
They're entertaining audiences very well. Bob Shane
Really?
is there from the original, you know. And
He went to Australia, didn't he?
And he lives in Alabama, actually, but Nick Reynolds was in the audience, you know, the originator, and he was watching it. But everybody really had a good time.
When you say everybody, I remember one night sitting in your dressing room, and you were the first celebrity I ever met in this country. And I was sitting in your dressing room, and a large blonde lady stormed in without knocking, hugged you and said, "I've just signed a recording contract." She wasn't Peter, she wasn't Paul, but by George, she was Mary.
Mary Travers, huh?
Yeah.
Boy, I don't even remember that.
In fact, it was something you said, which got an article written about me that got me the offers down here in L.A. You were doing your act at the Hungry Eye, and just in case I haven't thanked you, and you know I have,
Yeah.
you were talking about John Glenn coming back to Earth and reporting not to the president, but to me.
Yeah. We have him on the line. Yeah, that's it. The John Glenn, Michael, was once known as the first American in space before we knew about Governor Brown.
Our guest, Mort Sahl, will continue in a moment. I'm Michael Jackson. This is KABC. Mort Sahl. So much of what you say, sir, is sort of strongly against, I sound like an interviewer, strongly against the grain of public opinion. Do you ever feel like you're not one of us?
Yeah, well, let me tell you how I figured it. Very good. I figured it out. I'm going to tell you exactly what my role is.
I'd love to know.
I don't do this on every program. I mean, if I was on a rival station, I'd have to talk about restaurants.
Yes.
How about a station dedicated to restaurants, parenthetically? Right? I love those calls.
W-D-I-L-L.
My son is graduating from boot camp Thursday, and I've got $8 to spend, and I'll be in Glendora. What do you suggest I do? I suggest you go to L'Hermitage, go up to the maitre d' Enrico, and say, "We're in your hands." The ambiance, a rather amusing little port. Okay.
3 roses and 2 napkins.
Well, what am I? Well, yes, I'm against the group. As you know, Governor Reagan has a 2-China policy, right, Mike?
Yes.
I have a 2-America policy, theirs and mine.
Oh, I love that.
My role, I'll tell you exactly what my role is and why in this town we have an awful lot of acquaintances in common, I know. And why some of them understand me and some of them think I'm insane, and the audience, it's always been a romance with the audience, not my peer group, but I think America is like a concentration camp. It's like Auschwitz. Now, some people have appointed themselves guards, some have appointed themselves Jews, some have appointed themselves Jews who will guard other Jews and make a deal for extra food in the mess hall after closing hours.
They're bad people.
And so forth. I've come along and I've said, the business of this camp is death. Don't tell me about commerce. It's death. That's the truth. And my truth becomes their annoyance. That's a very serious analysis.
But really, that's a criticism of so-called liberals, social democrats, the very same ones who stood up in Congress and sent boys to Vietnam because they wanted to prove to the Republicans that they weren't so bad after all.
Liberals will do anything, they do the right things for the wrong reasons so they can feel better for 10 minutes. And anything that they endorse is doomed. Example. They act like everything is their personal discovery. You know, they put on the bumper stickers, "You should love your mother," "All people should be equal," as if there were any quarrel about that. As if any of us didn't think that all men are equal. They're going to remind us of that. We didn't know that. Okay. Yeah. Aside from their presumption, which is their arrogance, they never effectuate it. They're going to see that homosexuals are not discriminated against. So they have a rally, which makes them feel good socially. And afterwards, people are discriminated against. I haven't seen them affect too much. Desegregation was in 1954, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they were going to end blacklisting after the McCarthy period. Well, they didn't do anything but cooperate with it during the McCarthy period. And by the way, they're still blacklisting.
Absolutely they are.
They've destroyed the Democratic Party, among their other accomplishments.
Are you the man who said to me, Carter's a born-again Christian who vetoed federal funds for abortion in case he wanted to be born? For the first time, you did.
Yes, I did.
I've got a very definite question. It's one of those I should really ask off the air, but so help me, I'd like other people to know. When I knew you rather well, very well, when I was a bachelor.
I should say.
I mean, many long nights. I would listen, mostly. And that's the point I'm getting to. Most people who know Mort Sahl listen. Are there people in this world who put into you? See, we take from you, you give a great deal, and I mean that very, very sincerely. We all have to get from somewhere.
I think I don't think anybody's got anybody to talk to. I asked you on the way in here before we went on air
answer, could I?
who you talked to. You had a tough time. There's not too many, and I got a lot from Adlai Stevenson when I knew him, and I got a lot from William O. Douglas, and I get a lot from Gene McCarthy when I talk to him. But I got to tell you, it's a short list, and the rest of it, the people are numb. The air is charged with neutrality. There's people say practically nothing. I know a couple of smart guys, but they're not here. John Hart's a good friend of mine. He's running NBC in London now.
Oh, that John Hart?
Yeah, that John Hart, the NBC John Hart.
Bright man.
He's a good guy and the best. He's a good friend of mine, but he's not around, and friends are hard to come by. And you know me, I'll never reconcile to the inevitable, which is that there isn't anybody to talk to.
So then a friend is somebody who has to be able to make it give and take, not just somebody who's taking from you. You've got to have something to recharge your batteries. It can't all be from your own wellspring.
That's why I keep going back to work. You see, that's what's good about the audience.
Well, going back to work, you were back in San Francisco for, if you could walk on the stage with any particular newspaper under your arm, and you could only walk with one, what do you think it would be?
What a hip question. The Wall Street Journal. It's the most honest paper in America. By the way, I see you have Time...
What?
Attaboy. Good man. I see you have Time magazine there.
Yes.
And the cover is Detroit's Uphill Battle.
Yes.
Before I came down here, you know, I was enforcing the warranty on my car. I was burning David Horowitz in front of American Motors.
I've never forgotten once, you and I had a slight disagreement, and we met up at the Las Palmas bookstore one night at about midnight. And I knew that we were friends again because you said, "What are you driving, Michael?" And I told you, and I said, "What are you driving?" And you told me, and you said, "Let's swap."
Did we?
Yes. Well, I gave you my broken-down old clunker of a Jag, and you gave me a new Rover that night, and I drove your Rover home, and a drunken gentleman who could have flown without being in a car totaled it. At 3 in the morning, I called you, and I said, "Mort, you know that new Rover? I've just totaled it."
But I said, it's only iron?
No, you said it's only steel. How are you?
Absolutely.
Both of us were wrong. It was plastic.
We didn't know what was going to happen to the British car industry, or the American industry for that matter.
Yeah, if you turn this magazine cover around, look, it's all going downhill.
Very good. The customer relations man today at American Motors was very helpful to me. I want to give him the credit where it's due in a public forum. He told me to take the car to a depressed part of town, which I did, and hoping someone would steal it, and they didn't.
I guessed.
Oh, well.
Is and was and will be Mort Sahl. I'm Michael Jackson. This is KABC. This is KABC. I'm Michael Jackson. Our guest, Mort Sahl. Are you a good father?
Well, I don't know. You'll have to ask him.
Him's only 4.
Yeah, he's he's kind of wild. That's probably the best thing I ever did, you know. I took him... he really loves seeing the show, you know. I'll have him at Dante's tomorrow night.
Really?
He loves to watch his show.
I always had the belief that when a child of that age looks at you and says, "I love you," they really know what they're talking about. When they say, "I hate you," they don't understand. They just don't understand the meaning of the word. Does it destroy you when he says, "I love you"? And does it destroy you even more when he says, "I hate you," if he ever has?
Well, we got a strong family unit, you know. It's a real team, and that kid's got 10,000 years of culture on him, you know. So
yes, Judaic and Oriental combined.
Yeah, he's really... His uncle is the sheriff in New Orleans now, you know, Sheena's brother. It's Sheena's birthday, by the way, Mike.
Is it?
It's my wife's birthday.
Many happy returns. How many years?
We're approaching our...
Not her birthday. I mean, how many years marriage?
Final 10 years. 10 years, coming up on 10 years.
Yeah, we're coming up on 15.
No kidding.
Did you ever think that you'd be a father? I mean, did you plan that? Did you want that?
No. I should have got to it a lot sooner. It's terrific.
I don't think I was equipped to get to it any sooner. I really don't. I think whether I realized it or not, I was emotionally immature for that. And I love the fact that now when I bump into people I grew up with, they have kids older than they were when I last saw them, and I still got the young ones. I sort of like, what do you play with him?
Well, where?
What?
Oh, what? Well, he's kind of hip. He tells jokes and stands
No.
on the television set and does imitations and knows all the commercials by heart. And
Oh, mine knows all the commercials by heart.
He's
If mine
very
doesn't,
musical.
one more ooh la la so soon, I'll get him.
he had his first picture taken with Stan Kenton when he was 6 months old at Disneyland watching the band.
Is it really true that you used to sort of go in the bus with the band? I mean, you loved that music so much.
Yeah, and I think it's a kind of it's an interesting payoff, starting Dante's, because it's a
Big
jazz
band.
club, and my first job, was in a jazz club, the Lighthouse here in L.A.
Was that here?
Yeah, my first one.
Was your father a postal worker in those days?
Yeah, right here in L.A. He was always with the federal government.
But he understood you better than most people, I think. You grew up in different walks of life, but he was so proud of you.
Well, he was a writer. He just went back to the clerical work when things didn't happen on the other end. He was really an artist.
Could you have accepted failure?
I have several times. But I think I'd always be, I'd always be a kind of a rebel. I'd always be up in the mountains, with a rifle.
Why do you choose, and I've asked you this question, I know before, and I truly don't really remember the answer. Why this city?
Oh, L.A.?
Yeah.
Oh, I think L.A. is my number one mistake. It really is grim. Isn't it grim? We used to have the weather. We don't even have that anymore.
Well, what about what Stanley Kramer did? He just suddenly decided, after all these years, I've decided, he said, I don't like Hollywood. And he went to Seattle.
Yeah, but you see, the market here, when I started writing, the market is here, but I'm really planning on getting some ground either in Oregon or Idaho or maybe even in Europe and split. When I get like I just had 3 writing assignments at the same time, I'd
Screenplays.
leave. Now, the performing, I'm going to be performing here. There aren't that many places to perform now.
No.
That's part of the problem.
No.
I was in Vegas, as you know, for 3 years, but I'm going to be talking now to another generation. It'll be funny. I'll be
That's
a couple of blocks
exciting,
from Bob Hope. Yeah, because I think they'll pick up on it. I think the people are being desensitized with so much jive. They're getting so much jive. They always respond when you tell them the truth. I believe if I were engineering a presidential campaign, if I were writing, as I did once for a candidate, I
Yes,
would...
Kennedy.
I would... You tell them the truth, you could be president. If Ted Kennedy had told him the truth from day one, he'd be president.
You mean Chappaquiddick?
No, about everything about America, about what he really thinks about America. That's what I would do if I were with him. No, not that, not a confessional. I don't think he told us the truth about that, but I don't know what he told us the truth about otherwise. But it doesn't matter. With his constituency, the liberals, he was doomed anyway. Plus the fact that...
But Mr. Carter said he would never lie to us. That isn't the same as telling the truth, is it?
What did he say? The stealth, that new plane?
Yes.
It can...
The one you can't see with the radar?
Maybe we could put that same material over his brother. Also, it doesn't... Heat-seeking missiles can't find it, can they? They can't find the tailpipe on it.
No,
It evades
that's the idea.
If you can't stand the heat, get out of the White House. I don't know. The whole thing is, I'm going to have a lot of fun with that this year, but it's going to take all the skills.
Could you write for Ronald Reagan?
Sure, because he's a good performer, and he's got a great sense of humor, and he believes what he's doing. That's not hard. I just take all those jokes I do about Carter.
Yeah, don't worry, he will. Our guest, Mort Sahl, will continue in a moment. I'm Michael Jackson, KABC. Mort Sahl, you should be the most professional guest of them all because you did talk radio in Washington, D.C. Did you like it?
Yeah, I had a great time. I like the audience. I hate that town, but everybody knows what that town is. That's our shame. But I had a great time. I did 7 months of it, and I've done it before.
Yes.
The nature of it has changed a little. But
I'm doing some sort of free association, looking at you and thinking about the past.
Yeah.
All kinds of funny things come to mind, and if any of them you want to pick up on, please do. One-Eyed Jacks.
yeah,
That's you, isn't
I
it?
guess I've seen that picture more than anything else.
Why? That was Carl Malden, that was Marlon Brando.
Because it was about social hypocrisy. Father and son, most important relationship in the world. The man and his father, the man that teaches you to be a man. That's the most important thing in the world. I'm a Freudian, you know.
Women don't like Freudian.
I mean, Penthouse Magazine asked me what my relationship to Woody Allen. I said, I'm Freud and he's Jung.
Oh, that's lovely. I'll get Tony Grant to work on that one for us. But let me try and relate that one step further. When I think many people knew that you were writing for Kennedy, you were still knocking him.
Yes.
Were you biting the hand that fed you? Were you...
They didn't feed me. I never got anything.
I didn't know that.
I'm the only man that ever worked in a presidential campaign and received no patronage. I didn't get any tax breaks. I didn't get any favors in business. As a matter of fact, I got a swift kick in the pants when I continued to do it once he was elected.
Yeah, you mean I'm here now, Mort. Why are you still at... Yeah.
Let me tell you something about pragmatism. John Kennedy's in Arlington, Robert Kennedy is in Arlington, and Ted Kennedy lost to Jimmy Carter. And you know where I am? On the stage tomorrow night at Dante's, saying what I want to say to other Americans. And you tell me what winning is and what's losing.
Being fearful for your life is part of it.
Yeah, I know. But, you know, once you realize that they can kill you, then you throw away the blueprint because, as John Garfield says in Body and Soul, everybody dies.
But the old cliche that the assassin's bullet does not change the course of history, that's so much bunk, isn't it?
H.A.L. Fisher. Of course it does. It alters the entire policy of the country. And which is quite the point. It's not spontaneous. Of course it does. It accrues to the benefit. That's why we have policemen. The crime accrued to whose benefit and whose detriment. And then you solve it.
Have you changed much, do you think? If you ever listen to recordings of yourself, and I mean, the very first successful LP comic records were yours, weren't they?
Yeah, I made the first records in '53.
Have you changed much?
Not much. I'm still outside. If you look historically, the first criticism of the Korean War is from me. The first criticism of the Vietnamese War is from me. The first criticism of the Warren Commission is from me. And the first questioning of authority, the real rebellion against authority, is me, all the way back when I was in Belmont High School here with Richard Crenna, by his own account. But no, I haven't changed. I realize what my social role is, and I hew to it. And
if I was an agent, could I say to you, you would be more frequently employed at places of your choosing, and I can't even look at you when I say this, if only you would. And have they tried that?
No, because they don't want to, for one thing, they don't want to admit that there's any suppression in this country, because Americans like to think they're better than other people. They think that, they pretend that only happens in other countries. They would never admit that. And the devil has never offered me a deal, Mike. What they do is they either employ you, or they don't employ you. Nobody ever came to me and said, be a good boy, and I come on and people pay to see it. That's probably why the nightclub business is good. Or in the selling of pictures. I've sold 8 pictures now.
Have you really?
Yeah, 8 scripts. And I've got one ready to go at Laura Mar for ABC. And I just finished the movie United Artists. And just recently, the last couple of weeks, and they will, they're on their own. I mean, I wrote what I wanted to write. Nobody told me what to write.
Mort, if I had the microphone turned off and I said, Mort Sahl, would you like to be a film star?
The grand design is to make my own movies, of course, because I spawned all the guys that are doing it, and they're not making the movies about anything. They're making them about old movies. Of course I want to get into my own movies. Wrecking cars, carnage, in order to protect the material. Of course that's what I want to do. I got a great script coming up, by the way.
Really?
Do we have time?
Well, let's pause a moment and find out.
Okay.
We will reveal it here. The great script coming up. I'm Michael Jackson. This is KABC. I thought of you during the Olympics. When you came back from your weekend in the Soviet Union years ago, the first thing you said when you looked at me was, "It's gray." Do you remember that?
Listen, it's too bad that happened to Fred Silverman, a great American. Yes. That's what a super good. See, there's a good example of the network. I met with him last year, and I told him they should do the news. Now they're going to do a news show, a takeoff in the news with Bill Murray, and it will fail because his people have no viewpoint.
That's it.
And I say this not modestly or immodestly. That's a correct analysis. I should say an accurate analysis.
That story you were going to tell me. I've got just a moment left. What's it about?
My movie. It's about Jerry Lewis plays himself in it. He goes to Vegas to do the telethon, and the night before the telethon, there's a knock at his door. It's Sahara. He opens the door. This bespectacled man says, "I'm Dr. Leonard Feldman, and I have a cure for the disease." So Jerry kills him. Then the picture begins to... You like it? I thought you'd like it. It's a good movie. And
the theme song is "The Party's Over, It's Time."
Dante's every Wednesday and Thursday.
We'll hear this and more.
At 4269 Lancashire in North Hollywood, right up from Bob Hope in the Universal Amphitheater.
Take them both days. Thank you very much for being with us.
Mike, it's good to see you. It always
Lovely.
is.
Thank you, Mort Sahl.
Newsmakers, newsbreakers, and news with Michael Jackson on Talk Radio.
Hello there. Welcome again. Our guest is the one-of-a-kind man, the original Mort Sahl. He's been doing so, I don't know how many years. My first encounter with Mr. Sahl was when I was first on the West Coast in San Francisco. The year was 1960, I remember it well, and he was starring at the famed Hungry Eye, and he's one of the least changed people I have ever met, a man of honor and conviction, incisive, funny, and I'm awfully glad he's with us. If you care to speak with Mort Sahl, in Los Angeles, dial 520, followed by talk. Mr. Sahl, welcome.
Hey, Mike, it's good to see you. You're the only continuity in my life. How long have we known each other? 23?
22, 23 years.
23, you're 60, wasn't it?
Do you know something, and I've never said this in public, you really helped me to get one of my major breaks by a line of yours at the Hungry Eye. I was so flattered. I was doing all-night talk at a little station across the bay.
KROW.
Let 'em eat. KROW.
Yeah, in Oakland.
Something like that. KEWB it was called then. And you came on the stage and said something to the effect that John Glenn did not report to the president. You said, you don't remember this, do you? You said he reported to Michael Jackson. And
Really?
Time
Yeah.
magazine picked up on it because what you were saying then had such weight. It was...
You know, you mentioned Mencken a moment ago.
Yes, sir.
Mencken said he was approached by a bigot who had just raised the financing for a country club. And the guy said, well, you know, now the money's no problem. How can I keep blacks and Jewish people out of the club? And he said to his lawyer, and his counsel advised him as follows, according to Mencken. He said, the blacks' appearance will be self-evident, so you can reject their membership application. As for the Jewish people, if you let one in, he'll keep the others out.
Well, you know, if you think about it, aren't there clubs that have both token Christians if they're Jewish clubs and token Jews if they're Christian clubs?
Yeah.
But neither must look like what they represent. Isn't that strange? You once said to me something to the effect that you were partially what you're all about. You said you're out to prove to the ruling class that the working class is not fooled, and to the working class that they're not alone. Have times changed?
Well, you can rework that. Somebody said the difference between the two parties is that the Republicans promise to take care of the rich, and they do, and the Democrats promise to take care of the working man, and they don't. So, and what you were talking about, tokenism,
Yes.
John Glenn is what would he be, a Democrat who looks like a Republican.
Sort of an Eisenhower.
Yeah, it's perfect, you know.
I've got a question for you based on all that you've just said, and I've never thought of it before. I wonder who changes the world the most, the happy people or the unhappy people?
Never having encountered anyone who's happy recently.
Strike a happy medium.
Yes. I would say that the people that are in agony usually change it. The ones who are more sensitized to discomfort usually change it. Everybody doesn't have to change it. The one person can do it. You know, one person usually saves America. There's always one person. You know, it starts with Jefferson and goes on. There's always one person that stands around and says no.
We do well.
Clarence Darrow.
Do we discover them or they discover us? I mean, are they there and they're fighting against the odds and they arise, or we just suddenly say, let's give him sort of almost God status?
No, they're always romantics who don't wait for acclamation. They're people who figure everybody will identify with the need, and they come forward.
You know the saddest thing about you? You're not a musician.
That I wasn't a musician?
Yeah, because you love Tristano and Brubeck and Kenton, and I could go on. Don't you envy those?
They're all originals. Yeah, although Paul Desmond said to me once, at least you don't have to express yourself through a reed. You know, there's a little more dimension to it than that. So he said, you know, but yeah.
I think he was being complimentary. Anybody who could make an alto sound the way Paul Desmond make it sound.
Yeah, he was a genius, I would say.
When do you think you became your most, you at your most, your best? When did you leave the student ranks and join the faculty, or lead the faculty?
Well, I would say during a period of duress, what Hemingway called grace under pressure. It would not be when I emceed the Academy Awards and I enumerated among my best friends all the major stars. It's when I grew up and I realized that there was a watershed of American history, and I stopped kidding. Or I was kidding on the square, let's say. In other words, it's a period when people thought I was at my wildest, but I was probably at my best.
And there's a point that I've made every time you and I have been on the air, and maybe it will bore you, but I hope not. There are some who don't like Mort Sahl who say, oh, he's sick. I have never heard a sick line from you, and I have never heard a dirty word out of your mouth. But then I've only known you 23 years.
Well, you know what I think about all the cursing? It's become de rigueur now with the comedians. I think it's instead of talent, and I think it's important that people realize that violence in movies is instead of justice. Sexuality in movies, pornography and eroticism is instead of love.
Yeah.
And cursing is instead of humor.
Isn't that's
It's instead
interesting.
of.
You know, I had a famed comedian sitting exactly where you're seated, and I got a letter from his lawyer who demanded payment because I had the nerve to ask him whether he found it easier to be funny and dirty, as he is in Vegas, than funny and clean as he is on the radio.
How did he answer that?
You know something? I usually answer your questions. I can't. He was filthy off the air.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's always the easiest way. But at least we know it isn't limited to the new generation.
Didn't you used to sell cars?
Yes, I did that too. And
Didn't you used to
I
give me a
sold,
free TV set if I bought a car from you?
Tuckers and Edsels, and I not only gave the car. Don't you remember that?
Yes.
I was in Los Angeles at that time.
Yeah.
And I used to buy the cars at a ceiling of $10 and fix them myself, and then the television store would give me, well, anyway, there was an exchange for the television set, which cost $15, which was reconditioned, and I made a $5 profit. I was going to college then.
That's how he got rich. His name is Mort Sahl. Our guest is the Mort Sahl. I'm Michael Jackson on Talk Radio. Hi, Rick.
It's about when you had your conversation with this chairman of American Motors.
Oh, yeah, I spoke to Paul Tippett in Peking, but the line was bad.
We just reached a deal to build Jeeps with the communist government there in China.
Jeepu is called, yes. you drive a Jeepu.
Well, anyway, the main point, as the Wall Street Journal pointed out, was that whereas American workers would be paid $22 an hour, in China they would only be paid 30 cents. And I sort of think that this corporation, which is partly owned by the French socialist government, and doing business with this totalitarian communist government is very interesting of the state of the world business and politics these days.
Do you have any comment to that, sir?
Yes, several. It must be very comforting in Detroit when you go down to the welfare office to know that the work you're out of pays $22 an hour rather than $1 an hour.
Yeah.
You know, during the visit of Prime Minister Nakasone of Japan,
Yes.
this is inside information to the White House, there was talk after dinner, I understand, about protectionism and tariffs, and President Reagan pointed out to Nakasone that we haven't been punitive in putting, whereas a Chevy cost $23,000 in Tokyo or something. And Nakasone said, the president said it wasn't equitable. Nakasone said he wouldn't amend his position. The president said he didn't understand Nakasone's thinking. Nakasone said, I wouldn't expect you would. And then making the mistake of thinking he was talking to a liberal who'd be guilty, instead of a conservative who isn't, Nakasone said, I wouldn't expect you would understand our thinking because we've never destroyed one of your cities. And I understand President Reagan then said, what about Detroit?
Ouch.
So,
that really did happen.
I don't know. I heard it from an inside source. I hope he's reputable.
Well, when you talk about the protectionism, though, they're going to sell 1 million Japanese motorcycles in this country this year, and we're trying to protect Harley-Davidson, turning out, what, 35,000?
Well, we'll do the way we usually do. We'll buy it for the police departments.
No, you live in Los Angeles, where many of the motorcycles are Italian, where the cops
Moto Guzzi's
use
and also
Moto
Kawasaki's
Guzzis
in Beverly Hills.
Kawasaki's.
Yeah. Well, you know, this is a test of patriotism. This is a chance for people to come to the fore. And I think everybody's a liberal until it costs them something. Everybody's a great American until it costs them something, too.
Everyone is against inflation except for their own income.
And quite
And that
so.
leads us to Williamsburg, and as Stephen Weissman reports out in the New York Times, despite Reagan administration efforts to ensure a harmonious economic summit conference of Williamsburg, they're slightly apprehensive that the meeting may be marked by sharp disagreements. You bet your bippy they will be.
President's desk. The half a buck stops here.
Our guest, Mort Sahl, continuing with the other half on Talk Radio. Yes, you're on Talk Radio with Mort Sahl, and you are Janice. I'm Michael Jackson.
Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Hi, Mort.
Hi, Janice.
I just wanted to let you know, Mort, that I have been listening to you, I guess, since the 60s. I'm part of the hippie generation.
Aha.
And I remember when it was very vogue for everyone to don their blue jeans and their work shirts and speak out against the government or point out foibles of politicians.
Yes.
And now we've all kind of gone into our three-piece suits and our briefcases, and you're still there.
No, he looks either polo or Lacoste today. I'm not quite sure.
There are definite trends, Janice. I did the Merv Griffin show recently, and in order to be booked on the show, I had to take a different posture. He didn't want to talk about politics, so I went on and said I was sorry that I'd been brought up on charges of drug abuse by the city of Los Angeles. I'm sorry that I beat my wife, and I'm sorry I was difficult to work with.
Yeah.
And he said, is all that true? And I said, no, but in order to be on the program, I had to recant like many major actors. People seem to be into a tremendous narcissism, to be more serious about your comment, in reaction to your comment. There's a tremendous narcissism now. Everybody's worried about how the outside of their head looks. They're kind of neglecting the inside.
Which reminds me of a line I introduced a former United States senator by saying, and now Senator will tell us more about himself than we want to hear. And
Quite so. You know, I get what they try and do is bog you down with survival so that you can't really be a radical, and then you pay off your good instincts and your guilt by going to hear Paul Newman debate Charlton Heston about whether we should bomb Vladivostok from a nuclear submarine.
Very interesting, because there I knew what I thought and what I felt, and yet I thought that Heston buried Newman when it came to debating.
Well, it's hard. I know Gore Vidal and Tom Hayden say everything I agree with, and I don't know why I can't stand them. But, you know, that's a
Janice, are you listening to this?
Yes, I am. And I just want to say that I so appreciate Mort's consistency.
Good.
Hey, I appreciate that, the using that word, you know, because the more you stay the same, the more they accuse you of changing. I'd still vote for Roosevelt, but, you know, they keep talking about me drifting to the right.
I get your drift. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Is the worst problem still, and I never quite know in our conversations how personal I should get.
It's okay. You got it right.
The problem you used to say to me was, the worst problem is there isn't anyone to talk to.
Yes, I got that from Adlai Stevenson. That's the last thing he ever said to me.
Is that true?
He said there was no one to talk to, and I would think that was true. I would think it's true because people are too taken up now. They're all busy watching cable television. I mean, they're worried about taxation. They don't talk. When they do talk, they give you that upfront stuff. You know, aren't you worried about the Apache Indians and what are we going to do about the Redwoods? I even heard Dr. Grant recommending to somebody who was lonely to meet people by going folk dancing with the Sierra Club. That's not the kind of girl I'm looking for.
Well, then, yes, the family that shrinks together. Joe, you're on with Mort Sahl. I'm Michael Jackson. Hello.
The lady who just called mentioned, Mr. Sahl, your consistency. I have found you very inconsistent.
Uh-huh.
And I have 3 questions. Should you answer each one in order if there's time, or shall I answer them all and then...
That would be consistent.
Absolutely.
All right. You just mentioned Adlai Stevenson. I remember when you supported Adlai Stevenson, and then I remembered when you did a turnabout to the Lunatic Friends and started a single-minded, almost paranoid campaign against liberals, gays, and unions. Are you still on that kick?
I don't... first of all, it was Social Democrats,
Well,
not
what
liberals.
Yes.
It was never homosexuals, although I understand the code word is gay.
San Francisco, where you castigated the hell out of them.
Where? I don't remember.
On San Francisco radio station some years ago.
No, all I suspect is that the package now in which you're told that you have to endorse the left in America consists of, well, look at Mother Jones magazine this month.
Yes.
A lead article about, you know, homosexuality, rock and roll, drugs, and Walter Mondale. I don't know that I accept that entire package. I've got my own plans for my life.
Well, you also got a reputation for being unreliable, breaking contracts, not showing up for engagements, walking out on them. Has this
This is like the prosecuting attorney in a lawsuit. What contracts did I have with you that I walked out on that you had in mind?
One right here in New York, up on York Avenue at a theater several years ago.
Was it
Years ago.
you two had the contract together with each
I
other?
think so. I don't recall that.
Well, you did it. It was in all the papers, and you just
Remember now, before you consign my feet to clay, I may not be a great hero, but I'm the only one you have.
And then when Actors Equity was threatened to bring you up in charges, you started talking against Actors Equity and unions.
Where?
I've heard you on the air.
When did I ever speak
All
against
right.
the union?
Could I be fair and mediate just for a second? Are you against being a member of the union?
No, I belong to 9
I'm
unions.
an Actors Equity union member, and that's why I remember so vividly this thing about Mort Sahl.
Are you
You-
really a member of 9 unions?
As a matter of fact, I had an arbitration at Equity, and the other person was across the hall having an arbitration at the same time was Carol Burnett. Do you hold her in the same disrepute
I
that you hold me?
That's good reasoning at all. Just
Well, it's not good reasoning not to have your facts. And you can't expect people to corroborate an assault upon them.
Thank you very much.
You just
for your
don't
call.
like the jokes. That's okay.
I've never heard you tell a joke.
Well, I try not to, but once in a while I get commercial. I've got a joke for you.
Yeah.
Mayor Bradley in The Economy of the City. I saw him in his limousine this morning, and on the side of the door, instead of the seal of the city of Los Angeles, it said, "This city carries only $5 in change." That's a joke. I mean, I hate to compromise my integrity, but it is tempting.
I once had fun with him because, you know, he's been a colleague and we've worked together. And he became mayor and he said, "What's the first question on your mind?" I said, "What do your nephews call you?"
His nephews? Uncle? Tom.
I'm Michael Jackson. You've had this country and many parts of the world as your audience, but where's your primary audience now? To whom are you speaking and where do you find them?
you know, it certainly can't be cocktail parties in New York or Beverly Hills made up of attorneys who were communists in college and are now in the Mondale campaign.
Yes.
I don't want any of the... I don't want white wine, sushi, Perrier, and guilt. The only people that can be candidates for the movement are people in discomfort. People in discomfort are the American working class. They're also the most virtuous people in this country, although characterized in Hollywood movies as people who lynch people and are intolerant of their children getting high when they're supposed to be doing their homework in their room. The audience is working class because they care about survival, and they also care about the country. You know, if you're true to America, America will always be true to you. The reason I've been around 30 years, I say as modestly as I can, is that I don't think people perceive that I lied to them. If you're true to the audience will be true to you. But you can't look upon them with hostility, which, by the way, is probably what's really wrong with the comedians. The majority of the comedians, the young ones, is that they don't like the audience, and it comes through. You got to like the people. You got to like the people in this country. But you can't be an elitist and talk about the little people. The little people, yes, there goes one now. Ouch. Got him. So you got...
But you went to the kids when no one was going to them. And you said 30 years. I think 1953 is probably the earliest I heard of your going to the college campus.
If they get an all-expense-paid trip to El Salvador, that's going to happen again. But you know, the kids are brainwashed now. They think they're being served by people who are anesthetists, MTV, and people who distribute drugs to them, and the festivals out in the park where everybody walks around the gravel looking for the restroom. Being put to sleep and not being aware of what the threats are till you're becoming an adult, till you're living long enough. They got to realize who the real enemy is. The only thing you have to do before you die is find out who the enemy is.
Yeah, and not become part of it.
The enemy is not the druggist who won't open up for you in the middle of the night.
Okay, if Kennedy gave us optimism, and... No, I'll leave the rest to you. What did Ford give us?
What did
Carter give us? And what is Reagan giving us?
Ford gave us the pardon, and Nixon pardoned, and
you're sharp, yes, sir.
Carter gave us the same thing that Reuben Askew is running on. He brought his pious and virtue. He brought the virtue into the White House with a capital V. And remember when the turkey was on the lawn, they couldn't catch it?
Yeah.
The Carter White House?
Yeah.
I stopped one of the Secret Service men. I said, what do you keep that turkey here for? He said, spare parts. So, I mean, you know, what can you... What is Reagan giving us? He's going to run again for spite, I understand.
I didn't know that was an office you could run for.
He'll run again, Mike. He'll run again. And everybody likes surprise.
You bet. Yes, Gary, you're on talk radio with the never surprised Mort Sahl. Or the always surprised.
Hello, Mort. I've been a big fan of yours as long as I can remember.
Thank you.
I find you inconsistently consistent.
Yeah.
I'm a comedy writer in Detroit here. I've been publishing primarily for radio personalities for about 5 years.
Right.
I'm aging quickly. I'm not making a lot of money. And basically, I'm just wondering, I don't know how to take that next step. I didn't know how to do it, so I did it my way. I publish a comedy service called Comic Relief, and I have a number of clients, but it's a hard struggle, and I'd like to maybe get into television, maybe...
Why don't you drop the maybe?
No, okay, definitely.
You know, Bob Orban, you know him.
Oh, yes.
He has that service, a very nice guy. A very good guy, you know, and quite prolific, I think. Bob Bob started with the service, too, and he never had to come to New York or Los Angeles, although I guess this is the primary marketplace.
He's in Virginia, and happily so.
Yeah, quite happily. You know, I started as a writer. I could never find a comedian with the intellect. And that doesn't mean I'm a genius, but the audience has the intellect to talk to me. But the comedians didn't. They're really subpar mentally. And
sub who?
And sub Carson. So, as a result, I got up and did it myself.
You mean it didn't really happen that way?
Yeah, I was a writer, but nobody said I was a writer. I couldn't get a job at it. I was writing when I was at 10 years old for Richard Crenna when he was doing the Boy Scout Jamboree at KFI Radio in Los Angeles. But nobody, I became a comedian because nobody would do the material.
And you know, Gary, if I can go one step further, and this is also sort of personal, I remember a man sitting in the far side of a room in your house on San Isidro many years ago, never said a word during our entire conversation. I later discovered his name was Cavett.
Yeah, he's just about living there.
Yeah, and maybe for the same reason he went on to become a performer.
I'd just like to know how to expand it a little further.
If your name was Gary Mort, what would you do?
Well, it's a kind of a rash thing to recommend anybody, but I think I would get into Los Angeles.
It really is the nub. That's why you go to places like the Westwood Playhouse, and that's where you hone. I say home material's not fair because you don't work with real preparation, do you?
No, but, you know, you can sure find out by talking to the audience. It's like the district attorney addressing the jury. You got to get up and talk to the people. You're never going to find out in an office with one of those executives.
With us here is Mort Sahl. I mentioned, I just said in passing, Westwood Playhouse, but I know that's one of the places you love to go. Why?
Well, there's nothing like doing the concert show.
Yeah.
That's like me for an hour and 40 minutes, right to the roof. It's the same kind of way I address the colleges. Even though I have television plans now and I'm writing and all that stuff, this is a chance to do what I do best, what comes most easily to me. And it'll be a chance to raise a voice because I get tired of kind of sitting around and wondering why no one says it. I get a chance to get up and say it.
Well, how can you assess, can one generalize the mood on campus, be it UCLA, which is right across the street from where you're going to be performing, or nationwide?
Well, sure, it's safe. I'm going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a stockbroker, and rock and roll. You know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, as they say. But there's more. If they're given something else, they'll respond to it. I think there's a consciousness out there. Those people that come out and don't agree with Gene Kirkpatrick, they're alive.
You mean there is more to life than news, weather, and sports? Gene, you're on with Mort Sahl.
Yes, I wanted to ask Mr. Sahl, why does he have a reputation for being homophobic or anti-gay?
And other rhetorical questions. I didn't know I had that reputation.
Because of that interview TV show that you walked off of years ago.
You mean when the people came in and sat in the studio?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you'll have to ask the people why they came in and sat in the studio. You can't, a television show is not a town meeting. I mean, you can't have anarchy in a television show, no matter what groups are there. The fact of the matter is, Gene McCarthy, when he was running for president, had a meeting with a homosexual rights group, and he said to them, yes, your rights must be protected. He said, after a while, the conversation became, it's not one way of life, it's the only way of life. Nothing is the only way of life, including working out a Nautilus gym or eating health foods. I'm not like the Democrats in Congress, and I'm not going to bomb Peking to prove I'm anti-communist. I don't have to present any credentials to the homosexual community. I'm interested in mankind, which is a fist. I'm not interested in fractionating or fingers. And I dare say if there is a right in this country, and it is effective, and it seems to be, it's because they've driven people crazy and taken people that belong together and driven them apart. They've said to people, you're not just a liberal, you're a liberal woman. You're not just a black, you're a black liberal woman. Eventually you wonder if you're a black or a woman. People should be working together for human rights. And there are a lot of things that go without saying. Nobody has to say that everybody's equal. That was established 200 years ago. Nobody has to tell me to love their mother. No liberal has to put it on his bumper so I can read it at the next red light. Some things are givens. But I will not exclude the great odyssey of man, the journey to the stars and back, to talk about whether it's safe to live in San Francisco. It's nonsense.
It reminds me of one of my favorite questions of Mort Sahl's. How many lies before you belong to the lies?
Oh, thank you.
That's one of
out
yours.
Of the book, yeah.
Yeah, well, Heartland. Is it too late for America? That's another one.
Yeah, well, it isn't. Of course it's not too late, as long as people care. But not just about what they care about. Got to care about what the other fella cares about. It's not hard. Justice Douglas said it wasn't hard. There are 736 words, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, that guarantee everybody's rights all the time. Not just certain people at the times that you like them. It guarantees everybody's rights all the time. So I can put it in a more pedestrian way. Stan Kenton and I were coming out of a movie once, and there was a fellow in line, and he had a sign, normalize marijuana. And Stan walked up to me and said, you want to get high? The guy said, yeah. He said, go home and get high and shut up.
Mort Sahl, never shut up. Stay home with us. Thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to seeing you in Westwood.
Thank you, Mike. You're the best.
Till Monday. Bye now. God bless.